Welcome to the Fail Forward podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to change the negative stigma around failure into a positive. Failure is only a negative if we do not learn from it and we give up.
Welcome back to the Fail Forward podcast. Today I've got the amazing Natalie Potts on the podcast. Welcome, Natalie.
Hi, Henry. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. Really looking forward to this today. So tell me, Natalie, you come from originally a corporate background. So tell me about what life in corporate was like and then how your journey is to become now a successful business coach.
Yes, sure. So thank you. So lots of the work I do now is around it's gone to coaching, through to mentoring, through to lots now around business strategy. And that's purely come from, like you say there, the corporate side. So I did about 19 years in corporate. I worked for one of the top 4 retailers, and I joined as a kid, absolutely loved it, and just worked my way through to leadership as such positions, you know, managing big teams of people, which I say is no easy feat in itself. And I loved it, and my success was pretty linear is what I say, because I think that's unusual to people now, and it's unusual to stay in a business like 19 years for so long, and I'm 36 now. So yeah, that was very much a journey that I thought I'd stay in for almost like the rest of my life. My dad had done the same in the same business. He went there for 37 plus years. So I always saw that kind of would be my journey. And then I realized that through doing university as well, that I kind of thought you can't just have one thing. You've got to have more. The world's very, constantly changing. We've got to adapt. And I guess I can see ahead sometimes to the gaps that some people can't see in that. And often people will share that with me. So I can say it quite confidently and not ego-wise. But I started to see, I was like, well, I'm quite nervous actually that supposing this doesn't work out, what will I fall back on? Because I always knew I'd loved what I did with work, which was something I was fortunate to have, but I wanted to continue that. And I was doing loads of leadership, personal development work in corporate at the time to, become and progress as a leader. And I recognised coaching was a big thing. And I was like, And then I see people come back with their courses and I'm like, they're not doing what I know coaching is. They're just telling people what to do. And I guess that kind of almost irritation was like, right, I'm going to go and find out about this. And I have that inquisitive mind to go and think, right, if I need to work on something, I'll go and make it happen and educate myself as such. So I then joined the Coaching Academy, qualified there in corporate and the personal performance, because why wouldn't I do 2 diplomas at one time and a job? And absolutely loved it. Again, did really well with coaching. And then that's kind of evolved to them realising that I didn't like the corporate world as much. And I wanted to leave and do the big jump, as they say, the leap of faith.
Yeah. And was this before COVID? Wait, how long ago was this?
So this was the thing. So I started the business just before COVID. I started actually working with my coach in his mastermind, this is where I love the fitness stuff, because I love my personal fitness as well. But he was helping fitness trainers build their businesses and move from a gym to online businesses. And I just like the way he worked to work with, myself, because I didn't want to work with everybody in my world that was coaches. I wanted something a little bit different. And I was working for him for about a year and a half, then COVID hit. And the reality was I just couldn't do my own business at all. I just didn't have the time with what was expected of us in the corporate world. It was just too demanding. It was constant. And also you just saw a very different way of working. You couldn't plan in the same way. You couldn't have vision in the same way. You could literally think about the day as such with what was changing and the pace it was moving at. So we did COVID a couple of years, and then I started to think, no, this just isn't fitting. Like the values don't fit more of the business. And I actually had opportunities to progress to the next level of leadership. And I was like, I don't know whether to do it. And people said, it was one of those where people were like, you need to do it. It's great for you. And I did get through the assessment, and it was when I didn't get through the final sign-off part of this role. So I was in the role, I was doing it. I've been signed off by many area managers and everything. And it was one of those where it's just a personal thing. And people say they have those people in corporate sometimes where they're just not very nice people at times. And I met one of those people. I don't think she liked me. It got very personal, and I could never do enough or be enough, but my results were speaking very differently to her opinion of me. So it was one of those where it's like the pieces don't fit anymore. And I had to have an honest check in with myself and, get some sound advice from people in my life and just say, like, this isn't working for me anymore. What's the route out of this? Because as many of us want, you can't just chuck in your job and then it's all happy days. You've got to work through that and have a strategy and a plan for that. And I was like, well, that's my gig. That's what I know. I just need to do it for myself, which is often harder, right?
Yeah, especially the fact that you've been part of a business for 19 years. You've had that paycheck every single month.
Yeah.
That's a lot of loyalty and discipline there as well. So like, I know you said like, oh, it seemed very linear, but I think, you've had 19 years of commitment, loyalty, turning up, following the company, being part of it, being there every single day to be committed. So then there's this big step of going, I'm leaving that. So like, it sounds like a little bit your hand was forced by this lady, which is perfect, which is needed, but also then the realization of going and talking to people around you saying, what is it that I need to do? Because that is a big step away from a paycheck every single month to suddenly then going out on your own. So tell me, what did that feel like?
You're spot on. That part for me was about looking at what are my biggest fears, and my biggest fear was security of income, because money, whether I liked it or not, it just came in and went out and paid all the bills, the mortgage and everything. And that stability in money was like, well, what does that look like? And that's where I'm saying, and you kind of reverse engineer back on things, think, well, if I don't have that 1 month, how am I going to feel, and how's my reaction going to be to that? And I knew that wouldn't be great. So I was like, right, so to get over that and to work through it, I need to have this as a backup plan, or I need to have this in place. So I knew I needed a certain amount of funding and money as such for me to confidently make that transition, and then be able to confidently invest in a business as well. There's a bit of risk. I say the risk is not taking a risk as well. And I think that, success leaves clues. When you look around, people that are business owners, they do take big risks, and bigger risks than people who aren't making those transitions and running businesses that are doing very well. You've got to have an element of risk. So I did know that, but I think there's that point of, they call it like, calculated risks, and that's what I had to work through. Well, what does that look like? And again, I think that you have to come back to personal development stuff. You've got to know yourself really well. That's where anything starts in business. How do I operate? How do I think? How do I manage myself emotionally to things like that? So, and actually, like you say, when shit hits the fan, like, how do you actually react to that? It's okay thinking, but you've got to really understand and think about, what does that look like? Who is there to support? What's almost a worst case scenario if something's happening? And it's like anything. I work with a lot of clients on knowing your numbers in business. I don't think we're close enough to numbers. And the reality is that, and we'll all do it at points, but when I'm feeling nervous or a bit like, oh, I'm not sure what's going well with this, or where I am money-wise, I've got to face into that, lean into those fears, lean into the pain as such, because that's the part that you're going to then unpack and look at, well, where am I? What do I need to change? And then to bring the change. Otherwise, it's just going to build.
Yeah, 100%. And so your dedication to your fitness, because I know you mentioned this, because I think they're really correlated when we talk about numbers and dealing with the emotions and everything like that. In your corporate job, were you into fitness, or did that come in when you came into the business world?
Yeah, I was quite lucky in some ways. When I look back now, hindsight's a great thing, isn't it? But I was in a point where the role I was in at the time, I was able to kind of do it with my eyes shut. I knew it inside out. I had a great team around me that I built. So I was able to give everything to do 18 months as such of a fitness transformation. So I always thought I was overweight, and I just never liked that about myself. And I was like, I never used to go to gym, and then 26 hit, big split, moved home and everything. And I was like, something needs to change in my life. So I was like, I'm gonna have some downtime, just work on me for a few years. And also I wanted to progress in work. So I went to gym, and I was like, I'm gonna get a personal trainer. Because again, like, I knew that what I didn't know I needed to work on. I was like, never wanted to hurt myself with lifting weights and stuff. And I also knew I'm very confident, but I never could grasp why like females just didn't lift weights. And I was like, well, I want to overcome that. I want to do that. So I then got my PT, and I was like, I'm going to do a shoot. Let's commit to something big. Let's go all in. When you say big, it was big. I did, I think, 9 months. And yeah, I got very good people around me again to help me on the nutrition, the training, the plans and stuff like that. And did a full fitness transformation. I think I went, my heaviest weight I was ever once was about 13 stone. I got down to 8.5 stone just before a shoot. So I did that whole transformation thing. I wasn't at the level of competing. That would have been even more. But yeah, I just learned so much about, again, myself. And there's so much correlation. And I use fitness all the time in terms of analogies of business. Even this morning, I'm there at the gym, and I said, because I had last week off, and I was like, right, back to gym this week. I was just like, the difference I see with people who are patient in business, patient in a gym, impatient in business, impatient in a gym. And the two are just, they're the same, they meet the same. And it's always very good for me to use for people. And it's often something that is actually helping me get in conversations with people that are going to be potential clients, because we attract who we are, right? And And people that are wanting to change their life and their world in different ways than just business are attracted to what I do and a lifestyle I lead.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And I read your post this morning about the correlation between that, and it definitely hit home, because there's so much with it, with the discipline and the turning up and the consistency of continue doing something. It's the same in business. People need to turn up, be able to be coached and adaptable. So yeah, how do you find that helps you with dealing with? So if we take the situation you're talking about a minute ago, with going off and leaving the corporate world and then going into business, how has your fitness helped you with that?
One of the biggest things is that, and I say it a lot with clients I work with, time blocking, and I prioritize myself. And I don't have kids right now, but I intend to, even though I do have kids, I will put myself first, because it's that whole idea again of the oxygen mask on. And you've got to look after yourself in order to help people. And the same clients, like, you've got to look after yourself to be able to serve your clients at your best. So that part for me is that, like you say, it's the discipline. It's not motivation, it's discipline to do it when you don't want to do it, to you're going to have self-doubts, you're not going to see results quickly, you've got to be consistent and patient, you've got to know that things will go back, like you're going to put on a few pounds and things are going to go backwards in your business, and it's exactly the same. So when you can then, I think the bigger part of that, the ripple effect as such, is that you will start to see your world change around you as well, and who you're with. And let's keep it simple. If we have McDonald's because we're around people that eat McDonald's every day, we're going to put on weight, right? And then the same is true of fitness, the same is true of business. When you surround yourself in those worlds, and we met on a mastermind, but when you're having these conversations with people, that we could almost talk like that all day, because we're in those worlds where we just thrive, and it's how our mindset is, and how we want to live our life, and what brings us energy, joy, and makes us feel good. And essentially, people want to feel good.
Yeah, definitely. So take me to your you've realized that you want to leave corporate.
Yeah.
And you're going to take that leap of faith. You've handed your notice in. What was the plan next? What was the plan for you for the coming months?
The biggest thing was joining a mastermind, because as much as I got business to a degree, I was like, I don't know business on my own and running it on my own. And one of the biggest challenges is really basic. It's just I can't bear working on my own sometimes. I really struggle with that, because I had teams that I worked with. I led teams of like 500-800 people at some points. So and then like big leadership teams of 15-20 people at one time. So to then be on your own is a big thing. So, yeah, it's massive, and it is lonely at times. I say that. So I knew I needed, it's like asking, like, what do I need? Again, what's the fears, what's the risk, what's the gaps that you need to fill? And I was like, I need a community of people around me that think like I think. I need to be stretched, because I want to feel out of my comfort zone, and I want to feel the small fish. And I knew that I needed guidance on stuff that I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know in business. And there was lots I didn't know. But I knew, like you're saying there, the part before of discipline, consistency, all of that. I knew I had the right behaviours that I needed to drive, but I needed the knowledge part, and I need more experience to get within that knowledge as well, of running an own business, because it's very different. And also I tend to like, as people, I like to work with people like, I think that the best of the best as well, or that there's credibility there, that they've done that. That's important to me. So I needed that, but I needed it to be quite basic as well, not complicated, because I think we complicate a lot of business, and that was one of the things for me, is like, less not more. So when I went to an event and they were like, ditch everything you've heard, just focus on this, I was like, that's me. Success is non-negotiable, and you've got to focus on this and this, not this and this. And I was like, that makes absolute sense. So, but you've got to have understood from the start off, like, well, what do I need? What is that gap I've got? And who's going to fill that, and who can help me on that? And I think sometimes we can rush into things as well. I think there's a balance between, and there's no right and wrong on any of this, there's a balance between just going it, being spontaneous, taking a risk on things, but then there's also a balance of, like I said, calculated risk, slowing down and thinking about, well, actually, what do I need, apart from joining every mastermind, going to every event, doing every podcast you do, that what's the intent around it? And less is more at times as well. Don't spread yourself too thin. So that was a big thing that I had to really think about, all those things and what that looked like. But the fundamentals come down to, like you say, almost security around money. I needed security of people around me that were business heads to go, and I needed some validation at times. I needed to just go, look, what do I do on this? Because when you work on your own, you don't have that soundboard the same. It's like when I was working corporate and like something was happening, you'd be like, oh my God, and you'd go into people, you'd be like, this and this happened, what do I do? And they're like, we could do this, could do that. And it's like, oh yeah, because we get so in our heads all the time, we don't have that space.
Yeah, I absolutely love the awareness because you've come from that 19 years of discipline turning up somewhere every day and to have the awareness to go, okay, I'm going to go on my own and I want to be part of something still because actually like being part of a structured business for a long amount of time with all the people around you to suddenly go to you, Natalie, on my own, in my office, on my own, that's huge. That's a big shift. So to have the awareness and go, actually, like who's the best doing in our area, and I want to be part of that mastermind, and that's massive hats off to you because a lot of people would have just gone out and tried to work out a few bits and then gone, I've got no one. Because you're right, like you do need that bit of a pat on the back. I need it from time to time, and I've been in business 15 years and I still need someone to go, Henry, you're doing really well. Like you just need that occasionally to go, that's really good, because it's that self-confidence thing. So tell me, how did it feel on the first day of, like, once you left your corporate? What was that like? What was the first day? Was it a oh shit or come on, let's have it kind of thing?
It was, yeah, I thought I'd be really emotional about it and I wasn't. It was an interesting one. I was like, shit, I got to do this now. So I think like you said, they're going back to again, what, like I know what I need. There's times in a day where I'm just like, I'm quite routine and structured. And like this morning, like I went to gyms, things like that. But there's times I can be agitated in the day. I'm like, I just need to go for a walk. Or I just need to do this. You need to know like what's almost like you've got filling your backpack with good stuff of what you need, your self-care. But people talk about self-care, I need a spa day. It's like, no, like it just might be a simple walk or go and listen to a podcast or somebody you love, right? So you need to know what works for you really well. And that again goes back to awareness of you knowing you.
I absolutely love that, by the way. Just what you just said, just to take you back, that it doesn't have to be a spa day. Because I see this all the time with mentoring people that we're like, right, you need a weekend away, but then that's not achievable. Like, oh, I need to take 2 weeks off.
We don't need that. It's yeah, and when we're heads like we are of entrepreneurs and that creative space, that doesn't easily work well to just say I'm just going to be off, and that's okay. I think we've got to sometimes change. We're so conformed on things. We have to break the norm and say that it's okay not to know as well. And I said to some clients, like, you might walk away from, I do a one-to-one day, I was like, you might have no questions answered from today, and it's like, what have I invested in? And it's like, no, like we're just going to have some space today and just see a real power in different things and slowing it down. And it's the same with that sometimes I just need a walk. And I'm a big advocate of mental, like I guess mental well-being and fitness more, that tapping into, if we just did more exercise and the basics of being human as such almost, then we'd all be probably living happier lives and we wouldn't even be in a pandemic of how we are with mental health. But that's a whole different subject. But coming back to the business side, it's knowing almost what ticks well for you and how you operate. And yeah, it was scary, but what was scarier was the thought of getting to, like the end of my life at points or older years and thinking like I've not done what I've wanted to do and I've not had meaning in my life the way I wanted it because I just didn't take the risk. And I know that in years to come, I'd be going, I wish I'd just done it. And I just didn't want that to be my story. I didn't want it. So it was like, so what have I got to do to change that? And that's where I've worked back from. And part of that's probably the coaching side of me, in terms of I'll question myself quite a lot, and I'll reverse engineer things and think about that. And I'm very vision focused. So again, it goes back to thinking about, well, how do I operate? And again, what's the great things around that, but what's the risks around that? So I know sometimes I'm quite the possible thinker. I don't see threats, and that's a risk. So that's again, like when you say like I need people around me to go, hang on a second, that's not going to go well. And I'm like, well, I just don't see it.
Yeah. And then you get challenged by them. And I think the thing is what you've answered is something that I say quite perfectly, is what your answer is, not what I say perfectly, is that quite often the thought of doing and then not doing and is actually failure. So like the failure point comes and is that the not trying. And some people get so you could have been in that job for 19 years and gone, actually, do you know what, like that's going to be really hard. That's a big risk, and then I'm just going to stay in this corporate job. And then you would be sat there in your rocking chair going, I just wish that time 19, 20, 30 years ago, whatever it was, that I just wish I'd taken that leap. And quite often we fail before we start because we don't actually start, and that's a failure. Whereas fail forward comes in, that if it doesn't go quite right, then you can work your way through it. So
I think look, lots of people are happy in chaos, whether they want to hear that or not. And that's an awareness piece they need to have, is like people recreate that for themselves because they don't know anything else but that. And there's almost something very safe in that zone as well, where it's like, I'd rather, just give it a go, and it doesn't go the way I want. What's the worst that can happen? Reality. So I'm speaking in a few months, first time, and some people are really like panicked about this event on the mastermind I'm in. I'm like, one, I just want to enjoy it. That's the priority. Two, it's not going to be perfect. Three, I want to see it as a learning, and then maybe I'll do a TED talk in years to come, but even that might not be perfect. So I think there's something in this term messy action as well, and you got to see where that sits with your branding and your business. But the ones that are out there creating success, as we might put it, or doing what they want to do, are out there taking action. And that's the big, you've got to take action on things, whether it work or not. And again, you could say calculated action almost, but to sit and plan. And that's what I used to get really put off by thinking about, or someone's a CEO or managing director, and they'll know this, or they'll be judging me, and it's like, I don't worry anymore. So I know if I can help someone, if I can't move on. I don't worry about it. And it's not that I don't care, but in the scheme of things, I'm not going to be worrying about it in a year's time. So you've just got to give things a go. But I guess as well that I can struggle having empathy at times with people that don't take action. I have to recognise that in myself, where I can be driven as well. That can be my flaw, is that when someone does, and I'm like, I don't know why you just don't make it happen. But we're not, again, sometimes it's like, they're not all like you now. And I used to get it in corporate as well, they're not all like you, because I'm like, just go and do this, this and this, and it'll happen. And people just don't think that way. So if you're sitting here as somebody that's entrepreneur and it's making sense, like, but I don't have those people around me, go and find those networks and connections, get mentors, invest in yourself, because that's when the needle starts changing your business. And don't hold yourself back on things. I always think, like, go bigger and come down. It's harder to raise your game than to be kind of pulled in a bit of rein in a little bit. I prefer to have that.
Yeah, and the thing is it's having all of that, and then it, like you say earlier, it's leaning into it, because you could have easily come from a corporate background of 19 years and gone, I don't need this. I don't need mentors and people around me. I've been doing this for 19 years. Like, I know what I'm doing. And like, actually putting your ego to one side and going, actually, like, let's lean into this. Because I see it all the time. People sat in rooms on training courses, their arms folded, and you think you're not learning anything because you're sitting here going, I know it all. And I talk to people at breaks and they're like, yeah, I already know all this stuff. And you're thinking, well, you're missing the opportunity to learn. You're missing that opportunity. So, like, honestly, hats off to you for, one, taking the step to come out of the corporate role and go, right, I'm going to go and do this, and then leaning into masterminds, courses, learning everything. So how was your corporate career? Was quite linear. How was your coaching career? How did that start, and how's it been?
Coaching's done really well. I love coaching, but what I noticed was when I started doing it, I was sharing.
What is it that you love most about coaching?
Yeah, I think it's when somebody sees the potential in themselves that they haven't seen, and it's, you've created that space for them. I guess what I've recognised is, so that it's moved into, then people started coming to me for mentoring. I mentor at the Coaching Academy as well now for students, which I love, because I always like to do something in my life. One of my strong business values is giving back and giving value. So I like to do something where I volunteer in some capacity, and I feel that does that for me in terms of helping students on their journey. And then it's kind of gone to mentoring, and I've connected the dots. And again, this is the patience of time bit. It's taken me a good, I'd say, even 18 months of being on a mastermind. It's like, well, I'm starting out as a coach. It's like, actually what I love is telling people what to do in business strategy. But it brings in the coaching part of the coaching skills of listening, asking great questions, not like low level questions like, well, what does that look like? How does it feel? Like, I will have conversations with people on discovery calls, and they said, you made me feel nervous. And I was like, okay, let's talk through that. And I said, well, what's the reason around that? And it's because I've asked them something about money. I said, tell me what you're earning right now. Was one of my clients, actually. She goes, you're the only person that's asked that of me. And I said, but that's why you're in business, isn't it, to make money? And they're like, yeah, and that's why I want to work with you. But it just made me really nervous. So you've got to ask daring questions of people, those questions, be bold on things as well. So I love that art of, the coaching skills, their empathy, everything. But then I've done a bit of mentoring with it, and now it's strategy in terms of, right, you're doing this, this and this, you need to go and do this, this and this. So it's taken me time on my journey as well to give things a go. I've rolled out a whole program recently, and I've given too much. Like, Henry, I've completely overwhelmed people. But now, because that's how my brain thinks, and I'm like, why can't you just understand it? That's on me. That's a problem. It's a leadership problem I've created. So, but it's interesting that, well, okay, I'll rein it in again. So it's not the worst situation. I've given people more value than underwhelming them. I've overwhelmed and underwhelmed them, which is a good thing. So again, it's like, well, now I've got to work on that myself. So I think you're always evolving and learning. You can always change things as well. I think we get stuck in think I've told everybody I'm going to do it. So what? Change it. Like I'm rolling out some in-person days. I'm like, well, if I don't sell all the places, I won't do it. And like, but what's the worst scenario? I could not do it and talk about it for months, or I could give it a go and think, actually, I haven't built my audience enough. Go and do that. Or I haven't got my messaging right. Go and do that. Or I'm not talking to the right people. Go and further that. But until you do something, you will not know. That's the difference. And that's what coaching does really well as well. It gets it out of your head and onto paper or out there. And even just like us, this is why I love podcasts, because it's almost like a form of therapy for me. You just talk things through that's in your head and you break it down. And again, if you don't have those people around you for that, they're out there. You just got to find them, or you can create that world.
Yeah, absolutely love that. I use this as a bit of therapy as well, because I talk a lot about stuff that's happened in the past, and it's just great to get it out there. But you just hit the nail on the head with something perfectly, which is kind of the fail forward analogy, which is like you just got to go out and do it and then learn from it. Like you've said it a few times now in the last few minutes, and like it's the going out and doing it, and then you learn from the feedback from it. Like you've got feedback that you've overgiven. Great, you've overgiven, but now that feedback is to refine it. And if you'd have been sat in your room thinking about that for 9 months, like I'm going to put this out, I'm going to put this down, reworded it, and then suddenly like, oh, now I've got a new thing, and you're never really learning and evolving and failing forward, because that's the experience, isn't it? It's just taking the action.
There's a big thing in implementing fast. There really is, and you've got to do that part. And actually, again, if you're to break it down, the reasons you're not doing it is the self-aware. It's on you. It's because you're worried about judgment. You're worried about the fear of it not working out, or people not wanting it. Well, so what? Then you've got to get out there and try something different then, because no, it's not hitting people. But I see people trying to create things that are perfect, and like, I've got clients like, oh, I haven't done this, I haven't done that. And I'm like, just get it out there. Ask people, like, ask more. And again, like this idea of success leaves clues, again, like people, they said these things for a reason. Tony Robbins talks a lot about it, that success leaves clues, and you've got to give it a go. And it's not easy, and I know it takes resilience to be this way, to bounce back and to not take things that people say to heart. Like I take things to heart that clients say, or I take things to heart when people leave a community that I've got set up. I'm like, oh God, but it's life. It's okay. It doesn't mean it's on you. It's just because I've asked them sometimes, so like, what was it that didn't work for you? Like, it's just too much. I'm like, that's okay, because when I do it, other people understand. So I think it's more understanding of ourselves, more understanding of others, letting things go as well. You've got to, but like we just said here, that all of these actions and decisions you have in business and setbacks come with you being resilient, determined, disciplined, strong, all of those things. It starts with you.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And then asking the questions really key to like why they've left, because quite often as humans we kind of make up things in our head of why someone's left, and then you ask them and they're like, oh yeah, my dog's just gone in and I've had a vet bill and I can't pay it, and you're like, okay, like that's got nothing to do with me. But we make up in our mind that we've done something, oh no, like we've not given enough value to this person, and quite often it's not on you, it's on them, isn't it?
That's seek to understand first, isn't it, and then be understood. And that's key. And also I saw Simon Sinek and Stephen Bartlett talk recently, and they were saying about this idea of it's not feedback, it's notes. If you want to reframe it in your head like that, then do it. Again, coaching is reframing things. So however it works for you, but if you're not going to ask, you can't work on things to change it. The same as I've realised, my clients said like, how are you finding this week? And it's like, it's been a lot. And I'm like, really? But that's okay. But I need to change it. If I just kept it the same, I'm not going to have it's not going to be great for clients going forward, or I'm not going to speak about it in a way that I want them to get referrals, which is the easiest way to grow a business. So it's slowing down to speed up, and looking at those things. But I guess it still always comes back to it, even like that part Simon Sinek says, it starts with why, and it starts with awareness, and that all starts with us and how we show up in our businesses. And this is why I'm saying that you've got to always do the groundwork. I'm in a very good mastermind right now, and one of the biggest things I see in the people around me is, and actually I saw it in one of the ones you were in as well, and mainly more of men, and maybe that's unfair to say, but the mindset part's not focused on enough. People don't do the mindset work enough.
Yeah, you're 100%. Yeah, you're 100% right. And it's something that I've been working on in the last couple of years. And once you get that bit right, like everything starts and stops with you. Like you are the bottleneck, you are the action taker. So like it's all comes down to. So what do you do to work on your mindset?
Yeah, so I have a mindset coach, which is the biggest thing. I'm in a mastermind that's very good, where I feel safe to talk about some things as well that I wouldn't on maybe social media even. And I'm quite open on social media, but And that's been important to me. I've got very good people that are out of work as well that don't get what I do, to just give a different perspective on things and help me see things differently and play devil's advocate. I think that's important. And I often think, like, just almost count sometimes the people on your hand, like how many you got as well, those key people you can fall on that don't judge you, that you say, like the other week I said to some friends, like, I really miss you guys. I was like, it's just a bit crap at the minute, I'm just feeling meh, I shouldn't be feeling that, but I am. And it's that simple. It's not drama. I'm just saying I just don't feel it at the minute. But then the fitness stuff is my biggest thing. Giving some space and time to myself in that all the time. And I think because remembering this, and it's the same, it goes back to fitness, that you got to fall in love with the process. We're always this was my thing corporate, it was so like on the, I've got to get to this role, I've got to get to here, or my business got to have this revenue. And what I learned I got to points in corporate where I was like, I've made it to what other people would say is success, but I feel the most unhappy I've ever been in this business. And that's not a good thing. That's sad that you feel that way. It's that kind of, be careful what you wish for on some things. So I am big in, being in the moment. Even things like, last week I was on holiday, I find it hard to switch off, but my best. And sometimes I'm like, actually, it's okay that I don't completely switch off, because I think the pressure of everybody around me saying switch off isn't what I need, so I'm happy to get up and do something like an email in the morning if I want to do that, or write a post if I want to write a post. So I think there's that part in being kind to yourself with the mindset, and it's like you say, work on it when it's really hard, and just know that it's never going to go away, but it can kind of, I guess, like go peaks and troughs as well. There's parts where I know probably every 3 or 4 months I go on a bit of a change curve sometimes where I'll think it's tough. And I did it back in October. So I think that it's you having the awareness to, again, understand yourself well where you are with that, because my business was going faster than where my mindset was with it. And I was like, I can't keep up at the minute. That's a struggle. And then the same happened in January. I was like, I'm in the same point. And it's like, I know what I need now is people to bounce off, my mindset coach, and just to say things out loud. And it's that, or sometimes just a part of, like, I definitely need weekends off just so I have a bit of space in the business and things like that, or whatever you need. You've got to explore what those are for you. And there's no right and wrong in any of it. I think that's important. There isn't a right and wrong. And sometimes we don't have the answers. I know that's painful, but I think people just are they just want to have this validation all the time, or the constant, will it work, will it not? Who knows? Maybe we won't know straight away. And that's uncomfortable for people, but you've got to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, you have to be uncomfortable, and like you're right, like you probably were hitting a ceiling at that point when and then you go, what do I need to get past this ceiling? Because there's so many levels in business, and you go up and keep going. And the main thing is that you're always going to be uncomfortable, aren't you? Like if you're growing and you're growing in yourself, then you're always going to be uncomfortable. And I think that's the thing that as business owners you got to get used to, is that you're never going to be success is a summitless mountain. Matt Elwell always talks about that, and it really rings home, because you realize that there is no end to it. It's just continuous development and discipline, isn't it? And I love what you're saying, because it just resonates with what I always say. Don't make excuses, take action, because that's the key, isn't it? And if you're taking action, constantly taking action, then you're going to just be getting that feedback.
You said it when people like sitting at events and they're like, another event, or they're not taking action, and that is procrastination. I love podcasts, but sometimes, and I love reading, but sometimes read another book or listen to another podcast or doing something over again is a form of procrastination. And it's, again, for you to check in on that and say, is it just because I enjoy it? And sometimes we can just do things with no intention as well. I'm big on that. I'm very set on, in business, I know where I'm intentional, and other places I'm not. Like I have my own podcast as well, and some people think it's crazy I won't monetize it. It's like, but I don't want to. The whole point of my podcast is my therapy. I love it. If I monetize it, I think that I will go into mode of resenting it. It's a chore. It's another thing on a business. I said it's not about that for me doing that. So again, like, it's almost got some intention behind it, but it's just fun, and that's okay as well. And I think we can make business, again, very complicated, and I think we can take out the element of having fun with something as well. And I think that if you bring all this idea of having fun and exploring things to everything we've spoken about today, we get more experimental with just giving things a go. And we had to do that in COVID in corporate. Like I said, we couldn't plan even the next day as such. We just had to say, will this work and will it not? And what worked last month might not work this month. And that's where, again, like, you can see that you're working hard all these months for things, and there's times that's going to have to happen, but then sometimes it's not going to land because that was 3 months ago, and the world changes really quickly now. we've evolved. So it's the same with, I'm reading a very good book by Mo Gawdat actually about Scary Smart and AI.
I've got that on the side of my bed. I've picked it up, but I haven't read it properly yet. I've read his first one, Happy to Solve. Yeah,
Look, I love his stuff, and it's an incredible book, and it's interesting about AI. And the reality is that to just go, I'm not getting involved, not understand it is a risk, but you've got to understand again what that looks like for things, and understand that the world's changing at pace. So what does that mean to you in that, and how can you be a good advocate as well and leader of that change and be a part of it in a good way, like be the change. So it's the same in business, but a lot of the stuff in there, you see that the world is moving crazy fast.
Yeah. We had Alexis Kingsbury on the other day talking about AI, and I asked him who are the winners and who are the losers. And when I asked him who are the losers, one of those things was the people that don't embrace it.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. That's exactly it, right?
Yeah, exactly. But the people that don't embrace it and push it away and say, I'm not up for this, they're the ones that are going to fall behind. They're going to be the blockbusters of the world. Do you know what I mean? That don't...
And then those are the people that will get fearful of it because it will impact them. So I'd rather face into something and go, well, how do I manage it in the best way to know that actually it's going to make me nervous, but how do I understand it more, etc. And that's education is going to help us on everything. It's how we choose to see things, isn't it?
100%. So with you've gone on this bit of a journey, and now you're niching more into the strategy part of it. So tell me about that and how that's come about and how you help people.
Yeah, so the main way that's come about is the corporate side and seeing that I plan very well. Again, probably I've underestimated my skill set and how I can help people and see gaps and do it in a way that's logical for them as well, keeping business simple. Of you need strong business values, you need good vision, you need a very clear mission, and we work to those as a foundation. You've got to have the foundation strong in your business to grow anything. So you can use an analogy like a skyscraper needs the foundations before it's a skyscraper, or a flower before it blooms. Like we all need that. So does a business. And then it's around, well, actually, I've created a business that's created revenue that I've wanted, more time freedom, and attracting clients. So it's taking what I've learned and doing it in my own way and helping other people on that is really the thing. And it's something that I love, and that's how that's been growing and building, and it'll probably change in the next year. And I don't know what that change looks like either in some ways, and that's quite exciting for me because I'm like, actually, it might be I do a mastermind, it might be I do more in-person stuff. I've just got to work out, if there's one thing I wish I'd known sooner, it'd been to grow your audience. But because it's a tough gig and it can be competitive, but it's like anything, isn't it? You don't walk down a high street and say there's free hairdressers, or there's free Italian restaurants, I'm not going to open another one. You just go for it. And like I said, like I know the skill set, my mindset is what drives me differently to other people. I do a lot of the work on mindset with it, and I think that's worked really well with growing my business, is helping people see that, right, now we've got a bit of mindset work to do here, or I'll just actually implement it in for them in terms of confidence, overwhelm, procrastination, because it's absolutely key that it will hit them at some point. And I've done that through creating even like weeks of my programs. Like we have an implementation week, we don't do anything, you just slow down and you stop and you just go back and reflect on, where am I at, what am I doing, what's going well, what's not going so well, refocus, and then we go again as such. Because I think there's lots of programs out there that are just throwing everything at everybody, but they're not doing any of them. And I don't work with, I've recognized I can't easily work with clients recently, I should say who I do work with, but not who I don't. But you're not going to take action, so you've got to be an action taker. But when they've done course after course, I'm like, you just won't be right to work with me, because I don't think you will. I can help you on certain things, but your mindset right now on I'm just doing another course isn't going to be, you're not going to be right for a program with me. You're going to have to do one-to-one with someone is what you need. So again, it's being able to have the confidence to spot that in people and say, this is what you need as well.
Yeah, absolutely love that. Rather than just going, I'm an open shop and I'm going to have everyone that comes on board.
I don't want to be a business like that, because long term, I know you can turn business away, but the energy it takes me when I've worked with people that drain my energy, I just haven't got that capacity. And I don't need to be in that space. I need to be in a space where I show up in my business and I'm focused and I've got the right energy, and I'm working with people that are action takers that just need the help on, I don't know what to do, or what does this look like, or what do you think with what I've got here? And we map it out and look at it, and we get very clear on less as well, like actions, like what you're going to do, and holding people to account on that. And I say high support, high challenge. That was a big thing in corporate, and some people don't like that. and I understand that, but I will challenge appropriately. But I've got to make sure I've built that relationship with somebody. That's why I love one-to-one as well as programs, because I can get more into that side of things with somebody.
Yeah, and I love that because sometimes you've got to challenge people, and there is a process that you've got to follow when you know there's a blocker, and you can see the blocker of somebody. I've got a question for you. Because we touched on it, I've seen so many people go and buy courses and do that thing where they buy lots of courses, they go and sit lots of courses, listen to books, listen to podcasts, but they're still not doing it. What do you think, in your opinion, is the mindset block of that kind of serial content consumer? Yeah, content junkie. That what do you think? Is there a mindset block that you think that is general for everyone, or is it dependent?
I think there's a lot on fear of judgment. I think there's a huge thing in how people will judge us. And I think a lot of it stems from our family around us as well. And a lot of that goes back to beliefs we have. And we can change those when we become aware of them. I would say like awareness, then we can look at deciding to take action. So you've got a decision and the action that brings the change. So you've got to have awareness of what it is to start with. I think a lot of it is fear of judgment. And yeah, I think that sometimes a bit like the fear of, like I said earlier, about what you wish for. Some people are just unsure what they really want. And it's again, like, it isn't complicated with a lot of this to people, but people haven't done that groundwork on what do you really want, or why do you want something? What is your real why? Or they feel that they've got to a certain age in life and they're past that, they can't achieve something now, or there's too much responsibility and accountability on their life right now as well, especially if you're like the breadwinner in the family of everything, and the expectations on you. There's a big feeling of expectation for people. So I think you've got to individually break those down and understand where that's come from. And I think though we've got to be careful. Sometimes we can blame a lot on the past, and I see that a lot with money beliefs on things. And there becomes a point, sometimes people are like, "Oh, that goes back to your childhood." I'm like, it doesn't actually. It goes back to an experience I had in corporate when I was 21, and it changed how I was thinking about this and this. It's not about I had a great upbringing and stuff. It's not about that. So you've got to challenge yourself as well with those the way the beliefs and the way you see things. So again, it's a bit of that, it goes back to again the self-development, doesn't it? It's exploring how well do you really know yourself and how open are you to go on that journey. Again, I see lots of people like, yep, no, don't need to do the inner child work, and I'm probably like, something there maybe. I'm not saying, but go away and understand that, because those are the types of things that are holding you back, and it's hard to do that.
Yeah, it is, and a lot of it, yeah, you're exactly right. It is I think people can't pitch themselves doing the thing that it is that they want to do, and I think that's a lot of it, and it comes back down to, I think it's very difficult when you're getting trained by really successful people, which is generally what happens. Is that someone gets successful, they train, they can't actually pitch themselves in that person's position, and I think that's one of the biggest blockers. Do you know what, Nat? I've absolutely loved hearing this story. It's been amazing and very inspiring. And I'm sure you are an absolute inspiration to lots of people who are currently in their corporate jobs, thinking, what else is out there? I know we've had the great British resignation when COVID happened and a lot of people left their corporate jobs. But what advice would you give somebody right now if they're sat here and they're thinking, look, I'm in this corporate job. I don't really want, I want more than this. There's a lot of people that I'm sure are very comfortable and happy in their corporate jobs.
Yeah, that's important as well.
It's really important to go, do you know what? Because I think we do that a lot these days. We live other people's dreams through social media and seeing what people want. But the people that are comfortable, don't listen to this, but the people that are sat on the fence and they're like, I'm in a corporate job, like, I think there's something else out there for me. I have a different purpose in life than just being in this job. What advice would you give them?
It's a great question, because there's a lot of people giving wrong advice out there on this. And I remember somebody saying to me, go and ask your parents for a loan. And I was like, that's not sitting well with me. And you've got to have a plan. You've got to know what it looks like. And again, slow it down. Don't just go spontaneous and hand your notice in and just think it's going to go easy, because it's not. And you've got to, again, like I said at the start, you've got to face into what your biggest fears that you will have. And I do think you need a plan B as well on things. You can't just wing it. You've got to be very focused and strategic about how you do things. Like I said, I have bills to pay, and that was important to me. People are like, yeah, but like if you lose your mortgage, stuff like that, you can move in somewhere. I know those are all possibilities, of course. I don't want that to be the life I want. So again, I think about what you do want. So you've got to get wise counsel around you and have those conversations of what that could look like. And I think I had 6 months probably of paying all my bills ahead of me before I left, and I've mapped all of that out. because I didn't want that of, I knew that I wanted to go all in the business, but to do that, I had to get that stuff out of the way and to feel confident in that. So you got to work out what works for you. You've got to have some wise people around you, and face into that as well. You've got to know money well. And I don't think people are honest on that either. And you know, I don't know stuff really well, but I have a very good accountant. Like, I don't want to do that side of my business, but I know I need help on it. And lots of it comes down to, like, if you're not sure, you've got to ask, what does that look like? Go out there and find out. And it's almost like when you go and get your first mortgage, there's lots of people telling you can't do it. And then you think, well, if I don't try, I'm never going to know. And then guess what happens? You can unravel things, or you learn, actually, you've got another 5 months of saving, off you go. So get people around you that have been there and done it, and that you trust with what they're sharing with you, and get a plan in place, and then do it step by step. Don't go in, you know, guns blazing, here's my notice, I'm off, I hate this job. And again, like, manage yourself well, and know how that, you know, if you have a crap day in corporate, and I used to have quite a few, then how do you manage yourself in that? You know, sometimes walking away from something on that day and just thinking, do you know what, today's done, I'll come back in tomorrow. That's managing yourself and having power over something. So you've just got to really focus on what that looks like, and I think having a plan in place.
Yeah, and I love that plan, because actually not having to worry about money for 6 months and having all your bills and everything paid for is huge, because the first thing you don't want to be is worrying about when you're going to get fed at the end of the month, because then you make decisions from a stressed, anxious, nervous place, which, as you know, they're not going to be the best decisions. So you're using too much emotion.
But look, we don't need to have to do things. It doesn't have to be this or that all the time, or just it's got to be all of it at one go. Like, could you go part-time? Like, look at the options of what you have. What else could you do? So I actually work for another company as well with things. So I work in a school around motivational workshops we do with kids, and I love it, because actually, like you said at the start, like, it brings me purpose when I do those days. I have to be in a school for 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm up early, I've probably done the gym, I've got to the school, I'm ready to go. It's a full day, it's nothing to do with my business, completely different. I like variety, but that helps me bring in money to know my bills are paid every month. So work out if you need that and what that looks like, and getting in conversations with people. That came up for a friend. We were just having a conversation at lunch one day, and I was like, I'm completely hating corporate at the moment, it's not going well, I'm thinking of leaving. And he goes, oh my god, you'd be amazing at this, let me hook you up. And 2 years later, I'm now fully working with them as a training associate. So work out what you need in place. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, or everything straight away.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely love that. It's not one size fits all, is it, life? There's so many different ways to do it. And you mentioned it earlier, there's so many, like, you have to do this, you have to do that. To be successful, you need A, B, C, D. And everyone works it out in their own different way. Just a quick question. What was your, I know we keep talking about it, but what was your family saying when you were thinking about leaving? Because I know you mentioned your dad saying that he'd been in that role the whole time. So were they pulling you back? Were they pushing you forward? What was their consensus on it?
I've got parents that are very supportive as well, and I've got a very good relationship with my parents. And it was one of those that they were like, you're done. The conversation was just, that's it. Because, you know, they said, actually, in hindsight, it's probably should have been a few years earlier, but that's hindsight. But they said, you're just not happy. And when your mental health's impacted, and I wasn't on the brink of depression, I was drinking quite a lot at the time, which wasn't a good thing. And I didn't go on depressants because that wasn't the right thing for me at the time. But I read a great book actually by Johan Hari called Lost Connections. It's an amazing book, and it just completely opened my mind to everything. And I just had to go on a bit of a journey on my own again. And I think that, you know, I've done a lot of traveling on my own years before, where I've just done not loads of things, but the odd city thing. I've just needed the space and time for me. And again, I think we're so set on expectations of what is normal, or you've got to conform to Monday to Friday, or everyone's having a whole of this month off, whatever it is. Like, we don't have to do those things, and work out what you want for you. So yeah, they were very, very supportive, and that helped, because in some ways that was a bit of a validation. I think that there's nothing wrong in saying that. Sometimes you need that. I need somebody to say, this feels right, do it.
Yeah, definitely. And I love what you say about going and doing stuff on your own. I like doing stuff on my own. I'm a really extroverted person, and I love being around people. But then I get to the point where I'm like, I've been around people too much, and I get completely over drained from it. And I don't know if it was Johan Hari or it was I can't remember who it said it, but it might have been Jay Shetty, he was on Stephen Bartlett's podcast, and he said, I don't like the word lonely and being on your own when you do things. It's solitude, and that completely changed things for me. And I suddenly went, because I used to go for food on my own all the time. I'd go to Birmingham or Peterborough and go, do you know what? I'm just going to go out for some food on my own, and instantly I'd feel like, oh, I feel like the kid at school that's been like the loner in the corner. But then as soon as I went, this is solitude, and I completely changed how I addressed me being on my own, and went, this is cool. Like solitude. I'm not lonely. I'm just having me time. Like you said it earlier, looking after yourself, to put your own face mask on is so important to be able to turn up when you need to turn up, right?
Yeah, we do, and you shouldn't have to forgive, like feel you got to forgive yourself for that, or that it's the wrong thing to do. It's the right thing to do. And it's yeah, I just don't think we give ourselves enough space sometimes to even think about stuff as well.
It's a busy world.
It is a busy world, and like you say, like you gotta. That's where you got to find something in, like loving every part of every day with it as well.
Yeah, definitely. So tell me your thoughts on failure and what failure means to you and fail forward.
I guess failure means I've given it a go, and it's not the end of the world. I just so it shows there's something I've got to work on, which is a good thing. That there's more opportunity for to go and refine that class, like the program I've got for somebody, or refine the experience. I'm doing a lot of work on onboarding clients at the moment, and a lot of about like personalized experience more. And that's taking a bit of time. Like it's not quickly, but I'm aware of it. And again, I think like you go into things thinking, right, I've got to do this in this time, and it's done. So just be open minded to. I'm working on a bit of onboarding stuff at the minute. I'm going to look at different things people do. I'm going to do a bit of research, find out, and then master it to what I think it to be. Have some fun with it, and yeah, I think some of it will work and some won't. But I can only do that because I failed at actually not giving somebody a great experience in the first place. So I'm conscious that can seem a bit of that's not taking action and going at things and giving it a go quickly. But again, like there isn't a right and wrong. And sometimes I'll see in business that actually that needs more time from me because it's not worked before. But it's only through not getting it right or not having it land how I wanted it to or expected it to that I can go refine that. So fall forward is that I'm giving things a go, that I've got courage to do that. I think courage is a big thing as well. People talk a lot around confidence, but you've got confidence is an end result, right? The prerequisite is the courage to take the step in furthering your knowledge, furthering your experience, finding more belief in yourself or in what you're doing to then get confident in something. So courage would be a big thing for me with that.
Yeah, and you're right. It's feedback. Like it's feedback, and the quicker you can fail. And the thing is, with fail, it's a really negative word when you look it up in the dictionary. But actually, like it's feedback. So when you actually go feedback forward or feedback, it's not failure. Like that's how you learn quickly. And like the faster we can get feedback, the faster we can fail. The faster we're going to get to our achieved goal, because like that you're talking about like, right, this didn't work with this customer experience, right, what do we do next time? But if you never get to that point, you're never going to fail faster. And I used to spend years not failing at all, which then ended up me in one big failure because I hadn't learned along the way. And it's like muscles. It's like you keep flexing it and building it, and then you just keep rinsing and repeat, and you get to where you want to get to quicker. So
I think that I learned that well in corporate is that you have a level of detachment, and I think people can get very emotional because it's their businesses, and you've got to see that it isn't you. And I did a bit of that work last year, is that it's my business, but it's not Natalie, right? It's my business. So actually, if it all falls apart, I'm not suddenly like, it's not necessarily me. It's not the end of the world for me, or I haven't failed, or I'm not an awful person. It's just not worked. So what? Loads of people failed in lots of different things. They said Walt Disney wasn't creative, So you've got to again just see that if you come at something from a place of loving it and giving it a go, like that's the most important thing. And I think
I love that, because you're right. Like you've got to detach yourself from your own self-worth from your business, and I've been susceptible to that for so many years, that my self-worth was attached to my business. So when things were stressful, then I would feel low in confidence, and actually separating that apart is, that's absolute gold. What you said there is just going, okay, if my business isn't struggling, if it's like you said earlier, like you're going through, you're putting the effort in every day, but it takes sometimes a long time to see the reward for it. It's knowing that I'm putting that in every single day and the reward will come. I'm going to constantly be doing that. So right now my business is here. That doesn't mean my confidence has to be down here. My confidence can still be up here because I know I'm part of, and this links back to the original thing you said about it's the process I'm in.
Yeah, and that does a lot for people, is being confident in things. You're like, yeah, I don't know, but I'm willing to give it a go and have and ask for help when I need it. And that does a lot for people. That certainty in somebody does a lot for your business as well. And I think that's what I saw going back to that point in the corporate, is that we would just see things differently. We were constantly asking for feedback all the time. It'd be like, well, what's being said today? What do we need to work on? Because you didn't have that, again, that emotional attachment. And I think if we can do that in our own businesses, it would help us a lot in just giving more things a go, in just saying, well, what's the feedback? How did that land? What didn't land so well? And that's where I always invite people to do like a 90-day review in their business every quarter, whatever you want to call it, where they go, what's going really well? What's not going so well? What do I need to change and continue? And then when you do a change, just do a small incremental change, not big things, just like one change at a time. I learned that as well through Matt. And that's been key, is you don't have to do everything, but what's the priority out of those? But if you haven't got that ability to reflect and see your business in that way, you can't do that groundwork and that detail part when you need the detail.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And I believe you can live your life in 90-day cycles, and you can change your life in 90 days. Like, you could change one thing and in 90 days time, your life could be completely different. Like, you can't change it in a day, you can't change it in a week, you can't change it in a month, but quite often over 3 months, you can make some pretty big changes, or one change that ends up being one pretty big change. So
yeah, and that's one of my biggest struggles in running your own business, is this idea of time freedom. Like, I really struggle with that because, again, like, I'm very results driven, and because I have money coming in all the time, to then have a freedom where, like what you said, what you're working on now doesn't necessarily evolve until 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the road, when that client goes, oh, hi, I want to work with you now. And it's like, what? And I've been following you for months. I'm like, right, okay. That's quite hard. I have to work on patience too. And that's the reality. We're all working on things. I have to work on patience. I can preach about it, but I have to work on it. And I'm happy to say that I do. It is tough because it's what I'm used to, a norm, and I'm having to work through that. And I start that by saying to people, like my mindset coach recently, saying, like, I'm really struggling with it. It's on my mind a lot. And it means I'm probably a bit more sporadic at things, and I don't want to be that. How can I work on it? And it starts with just sometimes saying out loud, and it's like, just do this, this, and this. And I'm like, cool, got that.
Let's do it. Yeah, absolutely love that. Yeah, definitely. And patience is something that misses me a lot as well. I want everything done yesterday and everything done quickly. So we're just coming to the end now, Natalie, and I've really, really enjoyed today. So if people want to get hold of you, talk to you about strategy, or even talk to you about how you went about, leaving your corporate job, how's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, look, the best way, I've got nataliepotts.co.uk, but on LinkedIn on Natalie Potts, and then Natalie Potts Strategist on Instagram. Those are my 2 chosen platforms. Try and stick to the best. Not gone onto the TikTok thing yet, and I'm not doing very well on Threads.
I've not even tried Threads yet because I'm so overwhelmed with the amount of social media
when
there
I
is.
saw another one, everyone was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh my God, there's another thing. I was like, really? Everyone's like, love it. Not so I did roll something out quickly as a lead magnet for it. But yeah, it's that's what I mean. Like, the world moves at pace, isn't it? Work out what works for you and stick at what is your thing.
Yeah, absolutely love that. It's been a really, really great hour with you, Natalie, and I'm sure I'll get to see you in a gym somewhere at an event, which we usually bump into each other at 6 a.m. to do a workout. So yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Cheers, Nat. Take care.